The federal budget was handed down on the 6th of October. The broad nature of the document is now well known. The government has total current liabilities of $1.6 trillion. Real GDP is to fall by 3.75% this calendar year, and gross debt is to stabilise at around 55% of GDP in the medium term. Much of the government's focus and expenditure will be on the JobKeeper, JobSeeker and JobMaker schemes. However, for the most part, the government is trying to improve the economy by encouraging consumer and business confidence through tax cuts and business incentives. The tax cuts are supposed to work like this. They are aimed towards the lower income brackets, who are perceived to be more likely to spend the additional money rather than save it. The government must be hoping that this occurs. Equally, it must hope that the proposed tax incentives of business, ranging from temporary full expensing to fully maintaining the research and development tax incentive, will encourage original investment and productivity-enhancing capital, based on servicing increased demand and not just bringing forward scheduled investments. After all, the Reserve Bank has found business incentive was weak even before the onset of COVID-19. This is important as the 3 Ps, productivity, participation and population, have always been important elements driving the Australian economy. Participation is suppressed because of the recession, whilst, as you can see, migration has crashed. With limited international movement of people, the population driver of growth may not be available for a little while. Infrastructure development is to carry a lot of the heavy lifting. Between $100 to $110 billion is proposed to be spent over the next 10 years. As impressive as it sounds, that is proposed spend over the life of 3 1/3 parliaments, or 2.5 forward estimates periods. Moreover, one can only hope that everything promised can be delivered. There is also $1.5 billion to be spent on a local roads and community infrastructure program on a use it or lose it basis. Let's hope the money is spent wisely on projects that can improve productivity and not on boondoggles. The use it or lose it model, of course, was one of the reasons we got into the school halls fiasco during the previous government. Finally, let's hope promises of an infrastructure-led economy is not frustrated by construction industry capacity constraints. There are some itty and bitty regulatory reforms laced throughout the budget. Some things like this are helpful, of course, but not economy reforming. Everything seems to be left to the process being coordinated by the Council on Federal Financial Relations, announced earlier in October. Although an allocation of $261 million to encourage competition and productivity-enhancing reforms suggests that something may be in the offing this financial year. At about the same time as the budget, the government also announced its modern manufacturing policy, which identifies 6 separate areas of focus. Now, the narrow focus may disappoint some industry sectors. That said, the policy does promise this. Although during 2019 the government signed this international treaty, whilst it allows for a degree of preference to benefit small and medium enterprises, the overall aim is to encourage open competition for government contracts. It will therefore be interesting to see, when the time comes, how far decision makers are prepared to go to interpret the amplitude of Australia's international obligations when deciding how to build Australian manufacturing. So, all up, the government's hope is that Australia will escape the COVID recession by getting consumers to spend, 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 and for businesses to invest, invest, invest. We have to hope that happens. For further information on the topics discussed in this video, please go to our website www.kmcork.com.au.